Welcome to Houston Sports Talk with your host, Robert Land.
Football is back. Thanks for checking into the best Houston sports podcast for our live Texans-Vikings postgame show, part of the National Bleav Network, presented by our friends at FanDuel. Joining me to break this down is Battle Red blog contributor Clayton Anderson and host of Texans Probe, Jacob Barzilla. But you live YouTube viewers can join us too, so hit us with questions and comments as we move along. I'll keep an eye out for that. Before we get into the game itself, what did you guys think about all the players who did not play in this game? Does it make sense for them to not get reps with the opportunity to scrimmage another team?
Yeah, it was an interesting thing because we didn't really know who was going to play coming into the day. Like, D'Amico was kind of off-putting about it. He didn't really say who was going to be out there. But to me, I'm not really all that concerned about it. Once I heard that they scrimmaged on Thursday, I kind of knew that they weren't going to play a lot of their guys. I think they value the scrimmage of, having where, you could put Stroud out there. He's not actually going to get hit, but you can see what the offensive line, those groups are going to look like. And it's hard to get the continuity for the offensive line like in a day like today when Cam Robinson was not going to play either way. He's still dealing with his injury. So the continuity factor was not really going to be there because it was going to be a different unit than you're probably going to see in week one. It was good to see like Ursary and Andrews and those guys out there on the line. But to me, a guy like CJ, I don't need to see Stroud out there right now. I don't need to see Nico. I don't need to see Stingley. I think we'll see them next week, and we'll see them in the joint practices coming up. But at least from my point of view, I think the Texans just value the joint practices and the scrimmage and stuff like that more than preseason, especially when, maybe Minnesota, if you're going to throw CJ and the first team offense out there, Minnesota was playing their backups on defense. So it's not necessarily the best test of like what the offense is actually going to be, because if they look bad against the second team, that's probably not a good thing.
I just think you can't, Clayton, get enough reps with this offensive line that has never played together. I mean, I don't see what you can accomplish when you're in practice and you need as many reps as possible. That, why can't you continue to get at least a quarter worth of reps for the guys that are going to be the starting five?
Sure. No, absolutely. Look, it's overreaction season, right? Everything is super sensitive. We're microscoping every single thing, who's playing, who's not playing. I'm in agreement with Jacob to a certain degree. Now, personally, would I have liked to see CJ, Nico out there at least for not even the first quarter, but like a series of 2 or 3, sure, selfishly, right? Because based off of things you're hearing off in camp, I don't like the fact that the offense has been so inconsistent developing in camp. So selfishly, I would have definitely liked, for my peace of mind, give me a series or 2, throw us a bone. Let me see CJ run a couple of these. That's fine. You can sit him down. But I can understand like being overly cautious, right? Especially when, again, like if you watch the Baltimore Ravens game, like you got guys dropping left and right, legs tilted ways that they're not supposed to go. Guys again, Anthony Richardson already, pinkies, like that. So I can understand being overly cautious. But Rob, to your point, sure. But games 2 and 3, I definitely expect to see CJ and Nico and guys like that in, so that way we can see as a complete install at least what does this look like against 1s, 2s, or 3s. Like, just give us something, give yourself something. But game 1 is the first game of the preseason. I'm not going to overreact, even though I kind of want to. I'm not going to overreact to game 1.
Yeah, no, I don't care about anybody else. It was just the O-line. That was my thing.
Sure.
And the chemistry that needs to develop between those guys. Vikings first drive as we get to this game. J.J. McCarthy moved it easily in the field goal range on the Texans' second team defense. That was basically who they threw out there. E.J. Speed, a couple nice plays in coverage on the Texans' first drive. Let's just go right into that because that's where the fun starts. Davis Mills behind an O-line from left to right of Ursary, Scruggs, Andrews, Ed Ingram, and Blake Fisher. Cam Robinson nursing the injury. Titus and Tomlinson are just healthy scratches. They're not playing. So perfect drive out of the gate. Mechie and Stover with catches. Jalen Noel with maybe the biggest play of the drive on a catch and tough run on 3rd and 8. Ogunbowale ran the ball well behind the mishmash O-line. Good to see the OL actually making holes to run through. Bunch of stuff we can talk about. Braxton Berrios catches the TD. What caught your eye in that first drive, Jacob?
I thought the biggest thing was, like you said, the offensive line's run blocking. I thought they got out and they were making some good blocks. I thought Erstry especially was making some nice blocks on Dallas Turner, who, I mean, he is not your average backup defensive end. He played for the Vikings last season. He was a first-round pick out of Alabama. He's a really good player. And, he was kind of manhandling him in the run game. And there was no real weaknesses in the pass game. The only guy that was getting beat on that line was Bleav Fisher. He got beat a couple times throughout the game, which, it's been a continuation from camp, which we've seen. But, Erstry looked really good. I thought Jake Andrews had some good moments. I thought Brevin had a nice block. And I thought Cade Stover, like you said, he had the catch, but I thought there was also a Cade Stover where he got behind the defense and really probably should have been a touchdown, but it was just a little bit overthrown, partly because there was pressure from Bleav Fisher's side. But it's impressive to see, Cade Stover, who I didn't know if Cade Stover would be out there. I thought he would, but, he's kind of been in this, he's essentially a roster lock at this point. Like, he's going to be on the team. He's gotten a lot of first team reps at tight end. So I didn't know necessarily if he'd be out there, but he was, and he looked good. I thought Brevin laid a couple nice blocks as well on the Jalen Knowles screen. He had a good block, and he had a good block on a Dare run. Davis Mills looked clean. The operation as a whole looked clean. They were under center a lot. They worked the quick game, which is something that you've seen a lot from Kaylee in camp. And I thought the offense looked really good in that drive.
Yeah, we were just talking about it, Jacob, last time you were on. Bleav Fisher not looking good, and he whiffed twice in pass protection, as you mentioned, then had a Laramie Tunsil tribute, and a legal procedure is what I call that. And besides missing Stover on a potential TD pass, Mills looked razor sharp in this one, and that was his only drive of the game. But Clayton, I mean, not much you could really gripe with outside of Bleav Fisher from that first drive. I just thought that was pretty much picture perfect.
No, absolutely. Everything you saw eye test wise on the field today was a continuation of what you heard out of camp. You're hearing stuff like Davis Mills. It's the best he's ever looked, and he's showing it. I got the numbers up right here. 147.9 passer rating. Pretty nice, 4 for 5. The wheels fell off afterwards, but if we're just focusing on just the first drive, it's a beautiful thing. Like when you have a very methodical offense, but it's effective, like Jacob said, efficient, well-oiled machine. The pieces are moving, right? It's not gunked up. And yeah, you had to get gritty, right? The Noel run, I said about Noel, I think he's like just a stocky version of Tank Dell to me. This short, stocky, effective runner. Braxton Berrios, he's another name out of camp I've heard a lot about. Of course, he's been in the league, but he's wearing a Texans jersey now. Seeing him score a touchdown the way that he did, it looked really clean. Davis got the ball out, effective running. It just looked, like I said, no real complaints. It ended up with 7, which is what we like to see. So,
yeah, Bleav Fisher was out there supposedly trying to help Noel on the block right there, but there were 2 guys, and the receiver, it was either receiver or Brevin Jordan. It was either Mechie or Jordan got one of the blocks, but Bleav Fisher just didn't seem to know which one he was supposed to get or what he was supposed to do right there. It was ugly, and there's more ugly Bleav Fisher coming up, unfortunately. Second Viking drive, the Texans defensive highlights. EJ Speed, huge hit on a run stuff. He looked great. Jamal Hill flies in for a tackle for loss, so that was nice to see after kind of a lost season for him last year. But the Vikes behind second string quarterback Sam Howell, another field goal. Did I miss anything notable on that drive, guys?
I don't think so. I was going to bring up the Jamal Hill play. I thought that was a really, really good play by him. But that was pretty much it, I think, on that one.
Can I just say about EJ Speed, you mentioned, I could have sworn, maybe it's me, I could have sworn he was out there playing today. Like it was a lot going on. I don't know why this man only has, 1 tackle, unless I'm wrong. But
yeah, it felt like he had more than that.
Right. It wasn't TFL, but it's like I could have sworn he did more. I heard his name more. But
he had a PBU as well.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah.
Right. I just got to be funny, but it's like, no, again, that's basically what you just saw. So.
Yeah, Speed was the only guy, unless I'm missing something, he was the only guy that I thought of the second string guys that pretty much you saw out there starting that looked like a starter. Mm-hmm. The rest of the guys were not making plays, were not doing anything, and it just seemed like the Vikings did whatever they wanted to on offense all throughout this game.
No, absolutely. There was if y'all remember, correct me, I forget which drive this was, but it was a drive where it was kind of mid to near the end of the game where the fourth down, the would-be catch that upon further review, the ball hit the ground. So then instead of kicking the field goal, they went for it again on fourth down. And the second touchdown attempt was cleaner than the first. Like they whooped you worse on the second attempt than it did on the first. Like just clean, not even like a toe tap, barely defense pushes you out. No, he had room to catch it and comfortably tap 1, 2, 3 touchdown. You know, to your point, I know it's second string. I know it's first game in preseason. But from a depth standpoint, as a coach, I'm looking at this and I'm saying, okay, if something ever happened and I need one of these guys here or there, the Vikings did too much. Like it did way too many completions, way too many times with Justin Jefferson being way too happy on those interviews he was doing. So that's me nitpicking and saying, like, I need to see more, even if you're a depth guy, I need to see a little bit more, defense, a little bit more stopping of the opposing team for me.
Yeah. I thought there was a couple of guys on defense that had a pretty decent day. I thought Casey Toohill made a couple of plays. I thought he did a pretty nice job as the depth defensive end. I thought Solomon Byrd did a pretty nice job as well on certain occasions. But as a whole, I think the secondary didn't play very well. There was a couple of decent plays from. I think Tremont Smith had a couple, or one or two nice plays, but D'Angelo Ross was kind of getting picked on throughout the game. There was a couple other plays.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
There was a couple times that he got picked on, and then as a whole, the defense really couldn't get off the field. They were pretty decent on the first two downs, and then they consistently would give up third down conversions. Like you said, I think there was the third down where I think it was Miles Bryant that kind of forced the breakup there, and then the ball, and then they reviewed it. So, and they had the fourth down, and there was just, I forget who it was. I think it was Brosner at that point in quarterback for the Vikings. He could have sat in the pocket for 15 seconds. There was no pass rush at all. So, it's one of those things where the defense had a ton of guys sitting out, like you said. It got to third and fourth strings because at the end of the day, the defensive starters, you kind of know what you have in those guys, almost all of them.
Sure.
But you definitely want to see. And there's a lot of guys that are on PUP that would end up playing too. Like a Derek Barnett would be a second stringer that wasn't out there, or Folu Fadakasi who's not out there. Danico Autry's a guy that could play into a role. I didn't see Dylan Horton today. I'm assuming he was out as well. So there's some guys like that you didn't get to see. But the only concerning thing on defense is secondary depth at some point.
Yeah.
If one of these corners gets hurt, I like Jalen Smith, so I think he would be the guy to fill in. But after that, it kind of falls off the cliff.
Yeah. I'm going to come back to that in a second because I got to hit that. But one of the things that, we talk about is, who is missing. And of course, CJ Stroud, one of those guys. But even though we didn't get a chance to see him, I just took a peek over at FanDuel's over-under on Stroud passing yards. The number is 3,825.5 yards. And I'm interested in where you guys would lean. And just for reference, in his rookie season, he threw for 4,108 yards. Last year, it was slightly under this. So 37-27 is the yardage. So he would need another 100 more yards than last year, to put it succinctly. And when beyond the first two games, he was not even having one of his top three receivers outside of those first two games on the field. And that matters because I would say, not having those guys and then depth this year is better. So I don't know, maybe you go over because 100 more yards just doesn't seem like much to ask for. What do you think?
Yeah, I think the over here is what I would do. I think he gets closer to 4,000. I'm not necessarily sure he'll hit the 4,000 mark, but I think you could get to 3,900 pretty easily. With the receiver talent you have, I think the tight ends are going to be better this season. I think you really have not had a receiving running back like Woody Marks in a while too. And today it wasn't even the receiving game, but it's the fact that he can go out there and pass protect like he did today. He's going to find his way on the field on third downs, and he's a guy that is a real threat out of the backfield. And also will help you in the run game. It's kind of off topic, but it'll help you in the run game because you can take Joe Mixon out for certain downs. You don't have to have him as a 3-down guy. You can use him. So I think with all those weapons and, if the offensive line can play like it did today, I don't see any reason that unless there's an injury that happens, unless he doesn't play every game, I don't see there's any real reason that he wouldn't go over that.
Sure. And to add to that, it all depends on Kaylee's offense, right? If it's like an uber run heavy, sure, I guess you can say 37, even 37, 36, but that just feels a bit low. Like it just feels like this team is tailor-made, whether offensive line being just average, not abysmal like last year, just being average, and having the 2 6'4", monsters on the outside and Nolan Kirk hovering around the middle. I just think it's tailor-made for you. I think 37, 38 is easy. I think that's low end. There he goes. I don't want to get overly excited about it, but I can easily see 4,000 being at least low 4,000 being where you'd go. So over easily, that's where money goes.
Yeah, I don't know if we're Texans rose-colored glassing it, but I mean, it just seems like that would be the play anyway. But I want to hit some more storylines from the game in a bit. But before we do, just want to remind everybody, if you're not watching live, I want to hear from you in the YouTube comments, and look for our YouTube shorts if you need a quick break at work. The plan this season is to go live like we're doing today, 9 p.m. on game days for the afternoon games, and live right after the game for primetime Texans games. So if you're hanging with friends or at the afternoon games, you just can get on that live chat that night. Make it easy for you. Make sure you're subscribed on YouTube with notifications so you get updates on the live shows and all our content. You also want to subscribe to us on your favorite podcast app. All right, Texans next drive. Kedon Slovis in at quarterback. I don't know if I'm saying it right, because if you've heard of him, you're like a 5-star diehard Texan fan, and I congratulate you. His first drive goes nowhere, guys, thanks to a sack caused when left tackle Zach Thomas totally whiffs on the edge. The Texans D back on the field, and for the most part, the second and third teamers, we talked about it. They looked overmatched. The Vikes score a TD, and frankly, the Texans no-name defenders, it just made it kind of bad and boring. I mean, how focused could you stay, Jacob, in this game at this point in the second half?
I was still watching. Obviously I enjoy that kind of stuff. So I was still somewhat locked in. But then at some point my power went out in my house through a storm. So then I was like, I'm not watching the rest of this game. It was 4 minutes left. But I thought there were some decent things. But like you said, the problem with the defense wasn't necessarily that they were playing bad on the first two downs, but they were giving up 15 play drives, because they would have a decent first to force a 3rd and 4 and then not be able to get off the field. So that was frustrating. But I thought, I thought with the second team offense, I thought Slovis did a pretty good job working the quick game. That was something that Nick Caley's really been big on in camp, is, getting the ball out of the hands of the quarterbacks quick. And I thought they did a nice job against the blitzes. There was a 3rd down. I think it was right after the 2-minute warning where, they changed the play. They had Hutchinson kind of run this little slant on a 3rd and 4 or whatever it was. And he gets 6 yards because they just attack where the blitz was coming from. That type of simple changing the line is something that the offense will thrive with, and something that most offenses did, but I didn't really see from the Texans offense last season. So that kind of stuff is something to kind of keep an eye on. Obviously offenses are very vanilla in preseason, so you're not going to get a whole idea of what Nick Caley wants to do, but that kind of stuff is very encouraging to see. But yeah, the defense was really boring outside of the first, maybe 2 drives, because I enjoy watching those kind of pass rushers. Terrell Taylor's the guy I really like, so I was excited to watch him. He had one nice rush, and I know he ended up getting hurt and then came back, so glad he's okay. But like I said, Casey Hill did a nice job. There was a couple guys, it just wasn't very exciting for sure.
Yeah, just Casey Hill looking like Ryan Reynolds maybe was the most exciting part of the Casey Hill experience for me. I don't know. But yeah, it just was tough to watch. And, you go even to the last drive of the half, Slovis sack, thanks in large part again to a Blake Fisher whiff. So the offense starts to stumble at that point. It's just been a terrible camp and first preseason game for Fisher. And, I don't know what's going to happen with Blake Fisher. Is this another Kenyon Green where, 2 or 3 years into his career, we might be seeing Blake Fisher just get way. I mean, I said, okay, be patient. It was his rookie year. Yeah, he didn't look all that great last year. But, I mean, to look this bad in his first preseason game when he's getting all the reps, without the first teamers out there, Clayton, I mean, that's not good.
No, it's not good. And you know what? Similar to Christian Walker with the Astros, I question the tolerance level that the Texans are going to have for yet another O-lineman who's not, doing his job. Because you're going to need him. Whether there's a swing, whether there's a replacement, the season's too long. Like you said, the words out of camp has been the exact same thing. And it's funny. Louis Riddick said this on X earlier. He said preseason may not count, but it matters, right? You can definitely lose a job in preseason. While it may not earn you the most in preseason, right? To make you some buzz, make you some attention. You can lose a job if you're throwing 3 picks in the preseason to third and fourth stringers, or if you're giving up multiple sacks and whiffs and pressures and QB hits in the preseason. You definitely can get, yourself not knocked out of your whatever spots you might have had. So again, like I said, I just question the Texans' tolerance for O-line underperformance. When you just traded Laramie Tunsil, you cut Shaq, you trade Kenny Green. I just think they've showed their hand and said, hey, listen, like, we're bought in on this season. Show up, do your job. If you're out there in preseason, practice how you perform in preseason, how we expect you to in regular season. And if not, then yeah, and again, he may not get a whole season figured out. Like, he's had enough time. So
yeah, Blake Fisher, I cut him a break because at the end of last year, when he finally got a chance to start, it was against some of the best teams in the NFL. So and this is rookie year and tackles take a little bit longer, but man, to look this bad in preseason, it's a bad sign for him. Texans first drive, by the way, second half, couple of completions to Braxton Berrios, who looked fantastic today. I can't say enough good things about how good Berrios did. The Texans get a big pass break up on a PI penalty that I thought was a poor call. So good for them for that. Where were those calls against the Chiefs last year in the playoffs? But that did set up a field goal. But here's the thing, Jacob, with all the wide receiver room looking good, Braxton Berrios, John Mechie, we're starting to see these guys at the end of the line looking good. It does give Caserio a surplus at a position that he could then trade for, hint, secondary, if he's not confident in another area of the team. And that's something that I'm thinking about as we get closer and closer to cut day in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, I mean, from my point of view, I'm not too sure that the Texans don't feel okay with their secondary room, and maybe I'm wrong. I think they're pretty. I think they like Jalen Reed, and he was not out there. I think they like him as a depth safety, and Jimmy Ward. Depending on what happens with that situation, I don't know what's going to happen there. But if Jimmy Ward gets out there, he's one of the better backup safeties in the NFL. So he would be a huge piece for that team. Like I said, Jalen Smith, I think, is a good depth corner. I think Tremont Smith is pretty clearly the fourth best corner on this team, so I hope they keep him. I like Miles Bryant. I'm not too overly concerned about that room, but I do agree with you on the surplus at the receiver room, because I don't think John Mechie has a real path to make the team at this point, but he's playing well and he's had a pretty good camp. So that's a very obvious trade piece for you when you get to cut down. There's really 5 guys that are locked in at receiver. It's the 4, Nico, Kirk, Noel, Higgins. Those guys are locks. I think Hutchinson's essentially a lock at this point. He's had a really good camp. He's been in with the first team a decent amount in camp. So I think he's locked in with the roster spot. And then at this point, I don't know how you would cut Berrios. He's clearly your returner, and he looks competent on offense. So I don't know how he would get cut. Honestly, I think he's getting closer to being a lock on this roster. And then it comes down to, do you keep a 7th receiver, which I would assume would be Justin Watson if you kept a 7th guy, or do you just keep 6 and feel comfortable with that and then move on and use the roster spot somewhere else? I would lean using the roster spot on a different position and keeping the 6, and then probably trying to keep, maybe Xavier Johnson or one of these guys on the practice squad that you can call up if need be. But you have depth at that position now, and if Berrios looks capable on offense, there's no reason, to keep an extra guy necessarily, because he can do a lot of things for you.
Yeah, even running back with Mixon's injury and Chubb looking sort of weak, maybe you trade for a running back, and it makes total sense to do something like that, because we've seen the Texans, even non-Caserio Texan teams, do something like that late in the game. And yeah, I've not been a fan of Mechie for the most part, but he's showing up as the camp and the preseason move along. He's looking better and better, I gotta say.
Well, here's where it's hard for me, right? We all know what happened with Mechie to start his career. Unfortunately, he had the cancer diagnosis. And I praise God that he's okay, that he survived it. That's the most important thing, that he's alive, he's well. However, right, that should not shield Mechie from receiving criticism like anybody else does in the NFL. It's his business, right? This is what, year 3 going on, I think, for Mechie plus, right?
4 if you count the year that he didn't play. So
Right, but let's
3
say
years of actually playing. Yeah.
3 posts. And unless I'm wrong, between 3 seasons, he has a total of 1 touchdown, right? Am I correct about that, right? Like, I think he got 1.
It's just that Detroit game, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I haven't seen this like I wanted to see in Alabama, right? To your point, Jacob, I'm glad we're finally able to have the conversation, because at this point now, however you might have feel sympathetically about John Mechie from a business standpoint, a depth standpoint, he has not done anything for me and many others to believe that he should have an inline of entitlement to a roster spot, when literally every time there's been an injury and an opportunity for him to be the guy, he just hasn't been a needle mover. He has not been a difference maker, and it's not all his fault. But at some point, it's like the situation begs for Mechie just to step up. And in 3 years, he hasn't done anything significant other than some off schedule catches here and there. Yes, he had the big catch in the Cleveland Browns game on the sideline. Of course, we all remember that. But outside of that, it's like, to Jacob's point, it's been Hutchinson really who's been the better fit in those fire alarm scenarios. Like, Hutchinson has separated himself from that kind of crop of like him and Mechie kind of bubble guys, or who makes it, who doesn't. So yeah, I definitely think I wouldn't pick Mechie over Berrios. Like, absolutely not. If you can get something for Mechie, that'd be great. And on the other side, I root for Mechie. We all do. So if he can go somewhere and thrive and be somewhere where he can develop further and get more touches, absolutely. I'm all for that. But right here, right now, on a team that's doing like this, or is trying to, and we're identifying all the guys who are, like Jacob said, locks and quality depth pieces, I do not want another season where John Mechie is asked to be wide receiver 1 or 2 and expect anything from him. I don't think that's fair for him. And I just think right now, with the Berrios arrival and Noel and Stover and guys like that, you just have literally, like Dameon Pierce, it just seemed like it's set up to where he just really logistically has no real shot. He has not.
Yeah, if somebody out there has an idea of a, I don't know, secondary player, running back or something that might be available for 1, or maybe if somebody needed a couple of wide receivers, some injuries or whatever, let us know. Put that in the comments. I will also point out that the Hall of Fame career of Graham Mertz has not gotten off to a dream start. I don't know if he makes the roster after throwing 3 interceptions in his first preseason game. I wasn't invested in the Mertz experience anyway, not a huge fan of the draft pick. We also mentioned, of course, D'Angelo Ross already. He continued to struggle in that second half. Any other observations from this game? Anybody that you guys want to talk about, or anything in particular, big picture?
Yeah, I can go to a couple guys. First of all, I don't think they're going to carry a third quarterback on the roster. I think it'll just be the 2, and then they're going to practice squad Slovis or Mertz or someone like that. That's what they did last season, so I think they'll do the same thing. It saves you a roster spot. And really, if you get down to your third quarterback, you're probably not in a good shape anyway. So so I think you're better off saving the roster spot there. I think 2 of the guys that, on the offensive line that weren't maybe necessarily projected starters, like Juice Scruggs and Ed Ingram, did a good job as well from the offensive line. They were a guard for, I think the first quarter, maybe more than that. And they both did a really nice job, especially in the run game. Ed Ingram made multiple nice blocks. And in the pass game, they really didn't struggle a whole lot. Really, the offensive line fell apart once the second half hit, and they went to like 3rd and 4th stringers. They were started, losing a decent amount. But the run game, I think at half they were averaging 5.5 yards per carry, which it wasn't more. I think it was 7 or 8 carries. It wasn't a ton, but that's very efficient in the run game. And they did a nice job with that. Dare, like, he looked good in the run game. But I thought Jawar, I don't know what Jawar's numbers were, but I thought he had some nice juice. Like, he looked like he looked quick to me out there. So he's a guy to watch as well. Like I said, Slovis was clearly better than Mertz, and neither of those guys are very good, but I think one of those 2 probably ends up on practice squad, and they just roll with that.
Yeah, sure. Anything you have, Clayton?
No, absolutely. So he stole one of mine, you thief. So I was going to say, shout out to, I got 2 guys that really I'm focused on. So Dare, again, for me, shows exactly why you would keep him as like that third-ish running back. He just looks like he fits. He's like your Patrick Beverly. He's one of your glue guys. It doesn't matter the situation. He's going to be productive. He went 5.8, yards a carry, 29 yards total, right? Jawar, you said you wanted his numbers. He had 6 carries, 18 yards. Now only 3 yards a carry, but still, again, But for me, my guy, honestly, I'm looking at EJ Speed, right? And again, like I said, we all said it. We could have sworn that numbers wise, there should be more data that backs up. Like, man, he had an impactful game because you heard his name a lot. You saw him all over the field, PBUs, tackles, but he only had one. What would that look like with like him coming off the bench with the ones, or just in live game action when he's able to not just be the vet in a preseason game, right? But to add that kind of juice to a starting line, a starting D line, starting secondary, starting defense like that. I think he's a guy that could eat. Like, I think he's a guy that he would thrive off of being not the guy you look at as being the number one pass rusher, the number one defensive guy, nothing like that in Indianapolis, where it was like him and Zaire Franklin, like having to be the guys. No, let him be that extra guy who just brings nothing but juice, and just like the NBA equivalent being just like an off the bench guy, like a TJ McConnell. I think he could have like a borderline career season, or if nothing else, just being a finisher in this defense based off what he did today. So for me, that's my couple of guys. Like, Dari just proved once again, like, that's why you keep him. Yes, he can get field goals, but he just looks nice in Texas jersey. He's a way better Texan than the Jaguar anyway. And EJ Speed. And I think that's just another way to kind of stick it to the Colts and say, like, yeah, we were able to unlock EJ in a way that you weren't. So, take that. Outside of that, I just look forward to guys like Cade Stover in their second season, right? Away from injuries, getting further away from those things, and reestablishing, or in this case, establishing who they're going to be for this team. I'm just hyped for that. And shout out Brevin too. I know I said two, but it's popping in my head. Shout out Brevin Jordan too. I thought last season he was an underrated loss for this team. Like, no disrespect to Dalton Schultz, right? But I don't think Dalton Schultz takes that cutback pass in the Browns game in the playoffs for 60-plus yards, almost 70 yards for that touchdown. I don't think he does that. Brevin did. So for me, you get an athlete back, you get a pass catcher, obviously. I'm just excited to get the health back, these guys back who are dogs. I think he's signed to an extension too. So, yeah, EJ, Brevin, Jawar, Agumawale, those are guys I look at and say, yeah, I'm glad those guys are going to be, part of this team again.
Yeah, engineer says it's Blake Fisher, Kenyon Green 2.0, but he was beat on nearly every rep against backups. Yeah, we have beat him up. It's sad, but yeah, it did not look all that good. We've talked about also the rookies really having good games. Ursary, Jalen Noel, Woody Marks. I mean, there was some real flashes from those guys. Didn't talk much about Jaden Higgins, but I did see his offensive rookie of the year odds on FanDuel. You can go check out those guys, all of them. There's a ton of those guys in that chart of guys that you could take a wager on, and he was plus 5,000. So he pays 50-1, and I think it's wide open this year. There is no clear-cut QB favorite for offensive rookie of the year. Titans QB Cam Ward is 2 on the board at plus 300. If you want to bet on a Titans quarterback, risk it at your own whatever. But Raiders running back Ashton Genty is the favorite right now at plus 250. Higgins, number 15 on the board, same odds as Shedeur Sanders and Luther Burden. Think about it for a second. What if Nico is out a few games like we saw in past years? All of a sudden, Higgins is the primary target, guys. I may go to FanDuel, put a few bucks on Higgins. 50-1 is pretty cool, and then you can just hedge it by picking a couple of favorites if you want to. What do you think?
Yeah. I mean, the thing with me for Higgins is it's just hard to not pick a quarterback. Like, they always seem to want to give it to the quarterback. Like, even if Cam Ward, like you said, there's not that many options this year, I guess. So it would be Cam Ward or Genty or Travis Hunter if he has a good season. The hard part for me for Higgins is there's just too many guys. I think he'd have to beat out Kirk for targets as well, and I think Kirk is going to have a good season. And Jalen Noel, I was higher on Jalen Noel pre-draft than I was Jaden Higgins. So I like Jalen Noel more. I think Higgins plays a bigger role this season, but long term, I would still probably take Noel. I think it's tough to to bet on a receiver like that and that type of thing, and especially when you don't know if he's going to be like a top 2 target, a top 3 target. And Hutch is going to get involved in the targets as well. He's been involved in camp as well. The tight ends are probably going to be a decent amount involved. So I think I probably would stay away from any rookie of the year betting with the Texans this year. But I think there is upside with Higgins, if you wanted to do something like that.
Yeah, the thing I would say with Noel, I just think he's going to be blocked a little bit by Kirk because they're both kind of slot guys, right, Clayton?
No, absolutely. Yeah. To your point, it's the same as fantasy football. Certain guys you don't pick on the Texans right now, and you can say that and still think they're going to have a decent season for them.
Yeah.
Now, if you just had some money to burn, or even if you wanted to make a Higgins a part of your hedging of some other bet, then sure, go ahead and throw some money on that. And as much as I hate to even hear the scenario of like, what if Nico goes down? I just was, however, if that was the scenario, that I could absolutely see Higgins being somebody who you may live bet that and say, hey, yeah, let's go ahead and, drop it in. But for the most part, no, it's plus that much for a reason. The field is way too wide. It's way too wide. And plus Nick Haley's offense, I don't think it's going to create situations where it's going to be an over dependence on any one or two pieces. So just off that math alone, again, like I said, you could roll him up as a hedge bet and some other kind of bet, or if there's an injury live bet, that's sure. But I wouldn't touch it.
Yeah, he's not it's super injury prone, like he's going to miss a ton of time, but he's missed games every single year, Nico, and he just has soft tissue injury issues, and I just hope that's not the case this year. But remember, he got hurt last year on a touchdown, and we lost him for several games on a touchdown. on a 60-yard touchdown, or something like that. So a wide open touchdown. It wasn't like he was running away from anybody. He was wide open. So yeah, I do get scared with Nico, and hopefully Higgins is somebody that could be ready to pick up the slack, or between Higgins and Kirk and all those guys. You got guys to pick up slack, but I think that's why Caserio drafted 2 wide receivers this year, because he was worried about that.
Yeah.
Yep. Exactly why I did that. Yep. That's what I will say. Yeah. Oh, go ahead, Jacob. Go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, and it's not like Kirk has the cleanest injury history either. He's dealt with his fair share of injuries, especially the last couple of years. He hadn't played, I think he played 12 games or whatever the year, and then 9. So he has not been very healthy either. So they're probably going to go to Nolan Higgins and rely on them at big points in the season. And I think they'll be fine with that. I think, the depth was something that last offseason I came in really positive about. And then when Noah Brown got cut, I kind of felt less optimistic about the depth. And then you can rely on, like you said, John Mechie. That didn't go as you hoped. And I think Mechie had some good moments and decent games, but as a whole, there just wasn't enough production there. So, to have the depth is definitely a huge plus this season.
No, absolutely. Yes. Caserio made a concerted effort on every level to say, like, injury is not going to be the reason why we're going to be unsuccessful. Like, from running back to wide receiver to linebacker, like, everybody has a somebody. So I'm good about that. These are the layers and layers of players that Bill O'Brien was trying to foretell us about, but that just didn't happen. So, so there's that right there. Look, you got some young bodies, so you just hope that they hold up. At this point, I hate the word soft tissue. I do. Like, if anyone's been through the willful of years, like I hate that so much, but it's so true. Like, and it just, those things have a way of just nagging throughout years or seasons. So whatever the Texans have done in the past, stop doing it. Whatever stretches that they have not done yet, please start. And if you're friends with the Houston Astros medical team, I suggest you cut ties and block them today. Like, no, we don't need none of that. We need health. We need all 17, or at the very least, give us 15 and we'll bubble wrap you. That's why I said earlier, I'm fine with them being overly cautious. Like, don't play all the preseason games. That's fine. We need you for the regular season and beyond. So don't rush anybody. Like, you're fine.
The best and biggest news this weekend of everything that happened had nothing to do with this game. CJ Gardner-Johnson's injury was not serious, and he could be ready for week 1. Clayton, this was the most un-Astros thing ever, because instead of, 1 month turns into 2 years, it's 1 year turns into 1 month.
I mean, so I made a video on this, right? And the music was so sad. I was just like, again, we're doing this again. And then, if we all remember, Aaron Wilson, he made the report and said, confirmed torn ACL. Devastated, but I was like, okay. And then, oh, wait, Schefter comes down off the top rope and says, wait, hold on. In other news, not really, right? The knee looks intact. They're going to go further testing. And it's like, wait, what? And then, yeah, more reports. The Rossini came out, said, yeah, no, it's confirmed, still intact, still looking pretty good. And then when they put the date on it, said, like, there's a chance he might come back week 1. As excited as I wanted to be, I was like, hold on. As selfishly, as much as I want him to suit up and be ready for week 1 to be the heartbeat of that secondary group, look, again, covering the Astros this season, I don't want to rush a single guy back sooner than they have to be there. This is why we have the depth pieces that we do. This is why the defense is the way it is, probably top 5, arguably top 2 or 3, depending on what you believe. I think he's a piece. He's a luxury piece, but I definitely think the luxury that he brings is that impactful, where like you need whatever he has. So I'm excited about that. I'm happy about it. I'm happy to see that his season is, for the most part, saved. But I don't want to ruin it by rushing him back. So if we can hold down the fort until like weeks maybe 4 or 5, I think they're more than capable of doing that kind of thing with Kalen Bullock back there, Reed, and all those other secondary guys. I think we got it. But trust me, like I was hyped and still am, tentatively, nervously, just to make sure he's okay. And I'm happy for him. I really am.
Yeah, Jimmy Ward is not somebody I'm banking on either, Jacob. He's got legal issues and injury issues, and he is somebody that has those injury issues every single year.
Yep, he does. I mean, and I've been a Jimmy Ward guy that I think he is better than people give him credit for. But the problem is he just has never been able to stay on the field. He had 3 good games in a row, then he gets hurt. So you can't necessarily rely on him at this point. And, to go off Clayton's point, week 1, obviously, if he's healthy to go week 1, that'd be awesome. But you do also have an extra day off going into week 2 because you play Monday night on week 2. So if you can hold him out and then potentially get him back on an extra day rest for Monday night, that would be awesome. That would be the ideal situation. But like you said, potentially you could also just, if, maybe he's going to miss 3 weeks, you could just IR him or short-term IR him, put it, 4 weeks. So you're not going to play the first 4 games. So I think the offense or the defense will be fine. I don't really worry about the defense, even if he misses 3 to 4 games. I think they would be perfectly fine. Ideally, Jimmy Ward's playing the other safety spot, but I don't know if that's going to happen. It would probably be MJ Stewart or Jalen Reed. But I think that takes a secondary from the best in the league to top 5 in the league without CJ Gardner-Johnson. So it doesn't really concern me that much either way.
One thing I will say, just on the broadcast itself, I do like that John Harris is, kind of there and around stuff. They've had other color commentators that weren't around the team, and you didn't really feel like they were adding as much. One of those guys is somebody that you see on one of the local sports broadcasts quite a bit. But I do like that. I was not a big fan, and I've never been a big fan of the broadcast itself, the production. It's always bad in the preseason. You can't miss plays. And if you miss plays, show us a replay. I mean, NFL fans are serious fans. We are not casuals. and it's how can you miss a play? And if you do, that's the whole point of replay. There's time in between plays. Show us the replay of the play. That's annoying to me.
Oh yeah, from a production standpoint, absolutely. Like, even if I'm just having it on the background, like I want to see action. Like I want to see the guys. I came here to see guys play football. I don't want to see grass. I don't want to see sky. I don't want to see people talking. I don't want plays missed. I don't want to hear oohs, and I don't know what it is. Right? To even go to the TV copy angle on this, I'm not a Minnesota Vikings fan, so I'm good if I don't see Justin Jefferson talking over multiple plays and during play. I don't need to see his reaction in that extended of a fashion. But I don't know. I think they're just experimenting. Look, you know what it is? I think the NFL at this point, they're smelling themselves. Like they can do whatever they want to do, kind of, sort of. We'll show up. We're there. We're like flies on fly paper. We're just there hanging out. I don't even know if they care that much about that yet. I think they spend a lot of time promoting a lot of the new system. And I don't know if you saw it, but they debut the new graphics of the ball and the first down markers, right? They debut that kind of stuff. So it wasn't all fluff. They put some stuff in there, but yeah, they're just kind of playing with it. It's preseason for them as well. So
remind us where we can find you guys on social media and just anything you want to plug. Jacob, I'll let you go first.
I'm Texans Jacob on Instagram or X, Texans Probe and Texans Jacob. I do Texans Jacob's more like casual content. I do some Rockets and Texans, and then Texans Probe. We kind of do this weekly. Me and one of my friends, we do like weekly all 22 film breakdowns and all that for every week. So obviously coming up here, we're gonna do that. I'm real excited to get into the film and see what happens, especially early on with the first and second team. But yeah, I appreciate y'all having me on, and it's a good time. Of course, it's always good.
No, absolutely. I think I already follow you, which is good. For me, it's just at 713 Sports Talk everywhere except for Instagram. I have one, but I got to build that back up. X, TikTok, YouTube, same name all over the place.
Fantastic. And I can't tell you guys how much I appreciate you coming on with me on a Saturday night and talking Texans. And I'm excited to actually be talking about a game again. And that's fun. And even if it is preseason and even if it was a little boring at times, it was fun to get a chance to sit down and watch a Texans game. Unfortunately, I wish it just wasn't against the Astros Yankees of all games, of all series and everything, but still had a good time watching both of those today. Also want to thank everybody out there watching and listening, and we're going to keep doing this as the season goes along. So I hope more of you guys jump in. I want to hear more comments. Definitely want to hear you guys, what you have to say. I will be replying to anything that you say that if you catch it later, you didn't watch it live. So anyways, have a great one, everybody. And hey, go Texans.
That's right.
You're listening to Houston Sports Talk.
Hey, don't forget to support us by subscribing and commenting on YouTube. You can always listen to us on Spotify, Apple, or your favorite podcast app. Tell your friends about us and share our show links on social media. Spread the word, everybody. Thanks for listening.